Inmates at a Miami prison managed to birth a child without ever even meeting each other face to face. 23-year-old Joanne DePaz and 29-year-old Daisy Link, both imprisoned for separate murder charges, started talking to each other through the air vents before falling in love and eventually wanting kids. Using a makeshift line made out of bedding, they passed Joanne's erectoplasm through the vents, while Daisy used a yeast infection applicator to inseminate herself.
What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to my channel. How you guys doing? If you guys are brand new here to the channel, you guys don't know what we do. Let me break it down for you guys, man. We talk about the most scariest and creepiest videos on the net, on the web, from YouTube videos to TikTok videos, IG videos, Facebook. Anything weird, usual, and unexplained you can find right here on this channel. Just want to thank all my supporters, man, who's coming back to the channel each and every single day, watching the videos entirely, man. Commenting down below, and most importantly, hitting that thumbs up button on each and every single video drop. I really appreciate the support. Found this video for you guys today, man. Let's do what we do best, seekers. Let's seek the truth.
2025 just got even crazier, part 1.
Let's talk about
Firstly, passengers on a flight departing from Hong Kong International Airport left after midnight January 1st. Well, due to them crossing time zones, they landed in Los Angeles International Airport on December 31st at 8:30 p.m., allowing them to celebrate New Year's 2 times in a row. Next, in the country of Zambia, on New Year's Eve, a police officer who was intoxicated freed 13 prisoners so they could celebrate the new year out in public. Well, there is now currently a manhunt for the 13 prisoners, and the police officer was arrested. Finally, one thing I was not expecting to happen in 2025 already is to have a judge wearing a VR headset to experience a crime in first person. Do you guys feel like this is the right way to use technology?
These teenagers were killed in their sleep by the last person anyone would expect. It was the 1st of November 2018 in Oklahoma. Kason Tolliver was 18 years old. His sister was 16-year-old Chloe. They also had a younger 14-year-old sister who remains anonymous. Kason was a talented football player and was a senior in high school. Chloe was described as a sweet, kind girl who loved cheerleading. Their mum was 43-year-old Amy Hall. In the early hours of the morning on the day in question, she crept into her son's bedroom and shot him in the head. He was instantly killed. Now, his friend was sleeping over in the same room and started to call police. Amy then walked into Chloe's room that she shared with her younger sister and shot them both. The younger sister was grazed in the neck but managed to flee to the bathroom. It was there that she convinced her mum to hand over the gun. Police sped round to the scene at around 6:30 a.m. that morning and rushed Chloe to hospital. Tragically, she was declared brain dead and passed away 4 days after. Meanwhile, Amy had fled the house and was involved in a high-speed car chase with police. She was eventually apprehended and taken into custody. Amy later claimed that she killed her children in order to save them from her estranged husband. There was allegedly an ongoing custody battle. She has pleaded guilty and been sentenced to life in prison.
those custody battles.
You never knew.
Always have tragic endings.
There is a shack called the Devil's Toy Box in Louisiana, and for some reason people who go in lose their mind. Do you know the tingly feeling you get when you eat a pineapple?
Yeah.
Well, that's because the pineapple is eating you. It has an enzyme called bromelain, and that enzyme eats meat, which you're made of. Now you can check if your phone activity is being monitored. Just click on share, slide all the way to the end, click more. And if any apps appear before your contacts, you should delete it immediately. Sharks have been around for 420 million years, meaning they have survived all 4 big mass extinctions, making them older than dinosaurs, Mount Everest, and even some trees on this planet.
Damn.
The person who invented homework came up with the idea as a punishment for students.
It worked.
Morbid Facts, Part 476. This 2022 photo shows 40-year-old Russian mother Anna Uskova moments before she jumped into a frozen river. She was apparently following a Christian Orthodox tradition of Epiphany and believed that jumping into the frigid water would rid her of sin. However, she jumped in at a bad angle and was quickly swept away by the powerful current, trapping her under the ice. Her husband immediately jumped in to rescue her while their children screamed in horror, but his efforts were unsuccessful and her body was recovered 10 days later. This was the truck belonging to Missouri town bully Ken McElroy after he was killed in broad daylight by an angry mob in 1981. Over the course of his life, McElroy was accused of dozens of felonies, including assault, child molestation, burglary, animal cruelty, arson, and statutory rape. He always managed to escape serving time until eventually being convicted of attempted murder, but McElroy appealed and was released on bond before he immediately threatened to kill several people. An angry mob then showed up at the bar he was drinking at and shot him several times in his truck while he was attempting to leave. Despite over 40 different witnesses, nobody admitted to seeing the murder take place, and no one has been charged to this day.
They stuck true to the code. They said stitches. Snitches get stitches, bro. That's definitely not it.
Facts about the ocean that are scarier than any horror movie. First up, I bet you didn't know that you can literally melt in the ocean. Because in the deep sea, there's something called hydrothermal vents that can reach up to 750 degrees Fahrenheit, which will allegedly cause your body to melt. But by then, you probably wouldn't even notice because all your bones would have likely been crushed by the pressure. The next fact is honestly even scarier to think about. You know how we have so many scary stories about sea creatures, like sirens, the Loch Ness Monster, or giant squids? Well, a lot of the creatures that used to be just a story are slowly being discovered as real. For example, the giant squid, which scientists found were not only real and over 59 feet in length, but are also cannibals. If that's not bad enough, here's more. Because the ocean is basically a giant graveyard. In 2014, researchers diving into an underwater cave in Mexico found the remains of a girl estimated to be 13,000 years old, meaning there's a high likelihood that if you go missing or drown that you would probably never be found. There's also 10 million viruses in every drop of seawater, meaning viruses in the ocean outnumber all of the stars in the Milky Way. The actual number is estimated to be 1 nonillion, which is a number I've never heard before, but here it is written out. That itself makes me never want to go swimming in the ocean again. Follow for more.
Extinct animal.
Hey man, be careful when y'all be swimming and jumping into those lakes when y'all doing dares, bro. Cause now there's 1 million viruses in the water, man. Didn't even know that was a damn number until today. We learning.
Most scientists are close to reviving. Firstly, the woolly mammoth. It was believed to have gone extinct 25,000 years ago, but scientists discovered hundreds that just died recently. So they're planning to put its DNA inside African elephants, and they expect to bring them back in the next 5 years. Next, dodo birds were hunted to extinction 400 years ago, but a preserved head was recently discovered. By mixing that DNA with a maned pigeon, dodo birds should be coming back in 15 years. Finally, expect to see saber-toothed tigers outside soon, because scientists discovered DNA preserved in tar pits, and they plan to combine it with African lions. So this 10-inch toothed beast should be coming back in 10 years.
Morbid facts.
Can't mess with the
Part
ecosystem.
477. In 2016, a man who'd been continuously stalking Miranda Cosgrove apparently plotted to murder her. For 3 days, the stalker had been burying various weapons in Cosgrove's backyard, including knives and a rope. One day, he spent hours pacing around the area and eventually shot at a woman who looked like the iCarly actress. The man then performed self-immolation before turning the gun on himself right in Cosgrove's yard. Miranda has stated that she still lives in the same house, but refuses to stay there alone ever since that traumatic incident. Earlier this year, inmates at a Miami prison managed to birth a child without ever even meeting each other face to face. 23-year-old Joanne DePaz and 29-year-old Daisy Link, both imprisoned for separate murder charges, started talking to each other through the air vents before falling in love and eventually wanting kids. Using a makeshift line made out of bedding, they passed Joanne's erectoplasm through the vents, while Daisy used a yeast infection applicator to inseminate herself. Against all odds, the plan worked, and the baby was born healthy. The pair are now in different prisons, while Joanne's mother is raising their baby girl.
Things invented by...
Vent baby, bro? Do you know how freaking, like, I guess inventive you have to come up with a method to get freaking pregnant in prison by using the damn vent? You'd be a top tier thinker. Woo.
Different countries. US. Bulb.
First light bulb.
India. 0 digit. France. Bicycle. England. Computer.
Really?
Malaysia. USB. Germany. Car. Japan. Laptop. Italy. Battery. Sweden. Dynamite.
Hybrid animal.
Okay.
You won't believe exist. Dog plus cat. Cubby.
Copy.
Lion plus tiger.
Liger.
Liger.
Aren't ligers, they're supposed to be like really rare, right? But I heard they don't live long because of the combination.
Goat plus sheep. Geep. Jaguar plus lion. Jaglion.
Jack, man.
Polar bear plus grizzly bear. Roller bear.
These are some weird combos. I've never seen them before. The Jaglin, bro, was the most shocking to me. Goes to show you, man. The genetic part, I guess. You mix them up.
Animal facts we're
So
leaving
what
in
happened?
2024 because this app's going ghost and I am not doing this again. Black Panther's not an animal, it is not real. Panther means Panthera, so any cat in genus Panthera is a panther. So any of these cats being black is a Black Panther. This is a Black Panther. This is a Black Panther. This is AI. But it's hypothetically a Black Panther. Otters don't do this, and the fact that some of y'all think otherwise makes me angry. Male otters literally kidnap babies to hold as ransom for food. I promise you a pretty privileged hydro honey badger ain't operating off compassion. Elephants don't think you're cute, I don't know where that came from. Actually, I do, but that's for another video. But no, elephants don't think of us as cute, they think of us as pale predators. Probably why they life retire 500 people a year, allegedly. These aren't killer whales, they're whale killers. They're giant biracial assault dolphins. Well, actually, anything like a dolphin, whale, porpoise, whatever with teeth is a toothed whale. Dolphins are a type of toothed whale, and orcas are a type of dolphin. So every orca's a dolphin, every dolphin's a type of toothed whale, but not every toothed whale is a dolphin. Also, every tortoise is a turtle, but not every turtle is a tortoise. Pandas aren't bad at life, they're bad at adjustments. We've done way more to them than for them. I remember folks tried to get two pandas in Hong Kong to menage a deux for 10 years, but they thought the Oreo incels were too stupid to mate. A couple months of quarantine and isolation later, and the pandas were making a beast with two backs, and I think that pretty much sums up our relationship with them. Also, alpha wolves aren't real, it's literally just appearance. If you call your father alpha, that's your own omega business, not mine.
In 2005, a
father
37-year-old
alpha.
man from Houston, Texas decided to go to the beach to fish. The sand on this beach was super compact, meaning that it kind of felt like concrete. So it wasn't uncommon for people to take their cars on this beach. And on this specific day, John decided to drive his truck all the way up close to the shore where he unloaded and began to fish. He waded into the water so that he was about waist deep and began to fish. After a few hours of fishing, the weather started to get a little worse. And John, who had been out there for most of the day at this point, was beginning to feel a little bit tired. So he decided that he would take a nap. But instead of taking a nap inside of his truck, which was right next to him, he decided to crawl underneath it and sleep under the truck. And soon, John drifted to sleep. Hours went by and soon it was dark outside. Unfortunately, while John was sleeping, the tide came up and his truck began to sink in the soft sand. And in doing this, it crushed him to death.
The craziest coincidences ever.
Part 3. Two men accidentally swam into each other at a pool party at the Flamingo Hotel in Las Vegas. But when they looked at each other, they were shocked when they realized they were identical. They even had the same hat and sunglasses, and their builds were exactly the same. In 1945, a man named Tsutomu Yamaguchi was on a business trip in Hiroshima when an atomic bomb hit the city. He was slightly injured in the blast, but he survived. After this, he returned to his home in Nagasaki, which took 3 days because of the chaos. He went to his office and tried to explain what happened in Hiroshima to his boss, but his boss didn't believe him. Then another atomic bomb dropped on Nagasaki right next to his office, but he survived again. When he managed to get home, he found his house had been significantly damaged. But miraculously, his wife and children also survived the blast. So the question is he the luckiest or unluckiest man alive?
This terrifying serial killer.
Luckiest man alive. 2 bombings back to back. He's the GOAT, bro. I don't know what else to say, man. That's good activity.
Kidnapped a 17-year-old girl who was able to brainwash and outsmart the serial killer. This is a case that you guys have been begging me to cover ever since I started posting. Bobby Joe Long had a terrible childhood like most serial killers do. His mother gave birth to him when she was only 17 years old, and then his father abandoned him and his mom when he was only 2. And Bobby's mom was a pretty bad mom, and Bobby had some mommy issues because of it. His mother was really neglectful, always out partying, leaving Bobby home alone, and then his mom would bring home these random men for like a hookup, a one-night stand. But the thing is, Bobby and his mother could only afford a 1-bedroom apartment, and Bobby and his mom shared the same bed, meaning that his mother was bringing home these random men and sleeping with them on the same mattress that her son Bobby was sleeping in. And somehow that's not the worst of it, because Bobby and his mom shared the same bed up until Bobby was a teenager, meaning his mom was hooking up with random men in the same bed as her teenage son. And when Bobby was younger, when this was happening, he used to pretend to be asleep and just lay there as silently and still as possible. But when he got older, he started to watch his mom hook up with these men. And
that damages his psyche, bro. I guess that's the best way I could put that, man. Sharing a bed with your mom till you're that old, and she's doing that in front of you, that will scar you for life. That doesn't excuse his actions, but
I don't know if it's just me, but animal nerds piss me off, bro. Because for some reason, they always have to tell you the darkest fact about your favorite animal that you didn't even ask.
And I'm gonna do it again. Matter of fact, what's your favorite animal?
Favorite animals are otters and seals.
Say less.
Okay.
If you see a sea otter with its nose ripped off, it's almost definitely a female. Because the otter mating process involves a male clamping his jaws around her face to hold her in place. Consent sold separately, in fact it might be discontinued. The males can get so aggressive that they completely destroy the female's nose, where it gets infected and swells to the point where the female can't eat and just starves to death. Or the male gets too excited and accidentally waterboards his partner in the process. Which is only a tragedy to one of them, since males reportedly can't tell the difference between an active breathing participant and a soul evicted carcass, because they treat them exactly the same. Now you'd expect an animal that dates like this to have more males than females. Problem is that sometimes there's an aggressive testosterone incel weasel without a mate. In some of these lower female areas, these down bad water wolverines will settle for anything roughly the same size, which can lead the male sea otters breaking the seal with no approval, and sometimes even guarding the life-retired body for up to a week. Now it doesn't happen that often, it's pretty rare, and only in those places with a severe gender imbalance. But what was your other favorite animal?
It's seals.
Oh, well, some fur seals in Antarctica have the same problem, where a lack of female causes a hormonal hot dog without abundance taken in to resort to. Yeah, there have been multiple recorded instances of fur seals forcing themselves on king penguins. In one case, a seal assault lasted 14 hours until it eventually gave up and just ate the bird. And now you know why penguins waddle. Say something else. I want you to.
This mom helped her
She
son
will expose
cover
them
up his
all.
girlfriend's murder. Emily Peguero was born on July 12, 2001 in the Dominican Republic. She had 2 older siblings, a brother and a sister, so she was the baby of the family. Everyone describes her as being absolutely beautiful, very kind and loving, and just extremely bright. Her parents were very hardworking people. They didn't come from a lot of money, but they did their best to provide a good life for Emily and her siblings. When Emily was a little girl, she would often play with a neighbor that lived across the street, and his name is Marlon Martinez. So even though they were neighbors and lived right next to each other, they came from very different families. Marlon's mother, Marlene, was very well known around the community. She worked in politics, so she had a lot of connections. siblings. They lived in this very big house that was guarded by a large gate, while Emily lived in a more humble, tiny home. Emily and Madelon grew up very close to each other, and when Emily was 15 years old and Madelon was 18 years old, they began to date. So yes, she was a minor. They dated for a few months, and when Emily was 16 years old and Madelon was now 19 years old, they found out that Emily was pregnant. Of course, Emily's family was very scared and very nervous because the baby of the family was now going to have her own baby. It was definitely a scary situation, but they were supportive of Emily. As for Madelon's family, his mom was not happy about this. She was very upset about the fact that her son got a poor girl pregnant, and she was really worried about the family's reputation. She honestly didn't even care that Emily was 16 and was so young and going through this really big life-changing moment. She cared more about how this was going to affect her son's future and how this was going to affect him going to college. Despite his mom's opinion, Madelon told Emily and her dad that he was going to step up, take responsibility for this, and take care of Emily and the baby. Fast forward to August 23rd, 2017, Emily is now 5 months pregnant and she's expecting a baby boy. That day, Emily had plans to go to the clinic with Madelon to go pick up some lab results, and then she said that she would be back later that day. So Madelon picked her up at around 8:30 in the morning, and the two of them headed off to the clinic. At around 11:25 in the morning, Emily texted her older sister saying that Madelon was actually going to drop her off at a gas station because she had plans to go meet up with their uncle. Now, as soon as Emily's sister and their mom saw this message, they were immediately concerned. First of all, Emily always sends voice messages, so the fact that she texted this time was extremely odd. Second of all, they were thinking, what uncle? Like, what uncle is Emily meeting with, and why don't we know about this meetup? Why would the uncle ask Emily to meet him at the gas station? Like, none of this made any sense. Now again, since the families are neighbors, they can literally see Madelon arriving home completely alone across the street. So Emily's sister decides to go across the street to ask Madelon, where is my sister? Where did you leave her? And that's when Madelon explains that as they were driving to the clinic, Emily realized that she got the dates confused and that her results weren't going to be ready that day, but instead be ready Friday. So she asked Madelon to take her home, and as they were driving, she said, actually, can you drop me off at the gas station? My uncle is going to pick me up there. So that's exactly what he did, and that was the last time that he saw or spoke to her. Again, Emily's family was extremely suspicious of this, so they decided to go to the gas station and ask the employees for the surveillance footage. And when they got to the gas station and looked at the footage, they were shocked by what they saw. Well, actually, they were shocked by what they didn't see. Okay, go to part 2.
She was paragliding when suddenly a storm comes out of nowhere, pulls her into the heart of it, and then propels her up 33,000 feet in the sky, which is higher than Mount Everest and the same cruising altitude as planes. At this height, temperatures plummet to negative 58 degrees and oxygen levels are dangerously low, creating a fatal environment. On the way up, she's hit with hail the size of golf balls before she ultimately loses consciousness. And then, despite being unconscious for over 40 minutes, she wakes up. Her paraglider remains stable due to the strong upward currents preventing a fatal spiral. Thankfully, the storm's downdrafts eventually brought her back to a lower and safer altitude. And then once she woke up, even though she was disoriented and barely able to move, she managed to regain control of her paraglider and land safely. In the end, she suffered frostbite bruises and shock, but she was still alive, and that's remarkable. Another professional who experienced the same thing wasn't so lucky. If you're a fan of my content, please do me a favor and subscribe to my YouTube channel, which is linked in my bio before this app gets banned.
How did she do that? Not lucky that has to be free to happen.
Less than 2 hours after that video was filmed, the girl on stage in that video would be dead. Her name was Christina Grimmie. She was a famous singer here in America, and she was murdered in 2016. So Christina had been making music and performing all of her life, but her real rise to fame started when she was on the show The Voice. After Christina was on The Voice, the world kind of opened up for her. She made her major label debut, she started going on tours all across the world, and she was a rising star. Sadly, though, she attracted the attention of a very disturbed individual who can actually be seen here in footage from her final show, creepily watching Christina perform from the crowd, knowing what he was about to do. That man was 27-year-old Kevin James Loibl. So Christina's performance that evening ended at about 10 p.m., and afterwards she moved over to a little booth to sign autographs for people who had come to the show. At around 10:24 p.m., Kevin approached Christina. Christina, thinking he was just like every other fan there, opened her arms up to give him a big hug. But that's when Kevin retrieved a Glock pistol from his person and shot her 3 times at point-blank range. After the shots rang out, Christina's brother tackled Kevin to the ground. Yes, sadly, Christina's brother was there working the booth with her that evening. But after a fight, Kevin managed to get himself free. He retrieved his Glock and he took his own life right next to Christina's body. Sadly, Christina had been shot twice in the chest and once in the head. And by 10:59 p.m., not even a full hour after she finished her performance, Christina Grimmie was pronounced dead. Afterwards, Kevin's family left this note for the media. This was all they had to say after the tragedy. But fans, even to this day, remember Christina as an amazing singer and talk about the potential that she had if she hadn't been taken from this world so quickly. If you want to listen to more true crime stories, check out the podcast Murder in America that I co-host with my wife, Courtney. You can listen to it on any streaming platform.
Be here 1 minute, go on the next, man. She was a great person. Just trying to be nice, trying to show some love to her fans, and look what happened. Now, you know, wow, these, I guess, big people, famous people, bro, why they always be having security around.
This is part 2 of what went on during the Habersham County press conference on Debbie Collier this morning. I highly suggest you go to the other video that I just made so that you can hear all the other details as well. So, the most crazy information that they did give during this press conference was that Amanda did speak to Debbie on the phone that afternoon. So he does not have the exact time on it. But whenever somebody asked if Amanda would give any indication on why she was going to the Family Dollar store, the police officer said that Amanda said that Debbie was going to the Family Dollar to buy supplies to clean Amanda's house. This raises so many questions for me because, I mean, first, why would you drive 90 minutes north to go to a Family Dollar to buy cleaning supplies when there's all these stops along the way and near her house to be able to get the same supplies? And the weirdest thing, none of that supplies is used to clean a house. I mean, paper towels, yeah, sure, but a torch, a poncho, a tarp, what would that be used for to clean a house? And coincidentally, all that supplies was found at the murder scene. They also confirmed that Amanda was living in Maryland with her brother, and she moved back down on the 8th of September. And remember, Steve lets Amanda live in the rental house off and on, basically whenever Amanda needs somewhere to stay. It was also confirmed that Steve was working from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. parking vehicles for the football game that was going on, and they have all of it on CCTV, so it's very unlikely that he's involved. So Amanda spoke to Debbie that afternoon. She got the Venmo transaction at 3:17, and then she waited a whole 3 hours to contact the police and file a missing persons report. And we don't know if Amanda tried to call her mom or anything between the Venmo transaction and when the police report was filed. That was pretty much the extent of the information that they gave. The detective did mention that this is not a sprint and that they're going to take their time on this to be able to get all the information correct, which honestly I respect. Like, get all the information and then do what you need to do. Especially so whenever someone's found, court is smooth and there's no question or anything, to not be able to give this person the maximum punishment. One more thing is that they did mention that the autopsy is not completed yet. They have not received the report, and that the medical examiners gave them a 6-week time frame, likely because they're waiting on that toxicology report to come back. Okay. So let me know what you guys are thinking. They did say that they will do another press conference as soon as they get the autopsy report back, and hopefully by then they have more information. I think it's interesting that no one has been ruled out yet. And I will be super interested to see the timeline that they come up with whenever they get all the access to the phones. It's not really looking good, though, for Miss Bearden.
But then they're taking their time with that case. Imagine seeing that when you wake up. Speaking gibberish. I'm trying to say a ritual or something.
last words before, but this one was the most terrifying. There was a man who was taking his last breaths as he succumbed to renal failure. And right before he passed away, he said, "I see a bright light, horses, no eyes." Then he started screaming, "No, no, no." And as he yelled, he suddenly woke up, looked up towards the ceiling, and with his last breath said, "I understand." Then right after, he passed away. According to this ER physician, this could be provoked by certain neurotransmitters during organ failure. But sometimes he still thinks that maybe that patient saw more than we're led to believe. Let me know if I should make a part 2 and follow for more.
This is why I would never hire a stranger for a kid's birthday party. And if the photo's not bad enough, the mystery behind it is so much worse. And a reminder before I dive in that if you like all things spooky and true crime, check out my podcast. There's a link to it in my profile. So in the 1940s, the McLaren family in Houston, Texas was having a birthday party for their daughter, Rose. They hired a clown for the party, but an hour before the party started, they get a call from the company saying that the clown they hired was no longer available. They were going to send someone else in his place. And the parents were like, okay, fine, whatever. But then this man shows up to the party. And the kids are all terrified of him. No one really wants to take photos. The man stayed at the party for about 20 minutes and then just disappeared. But get this. After he left, the clown that they hired showed up to the party. And he apologized for being late. And the mother is like, "What are you doing here? You canceled on us." And the clown's like, "No, I didn't." And it was at that moment that one of the parents noticed that this little boy pictured here was missing. The little boy was never found, and the identity of this man remains a mystery even today.
Be careful who you invite to your freaking kid's party. He's a poser.
Unsolved mysteries that might creep you out. Number 10, the net Cayadito. In the early hours of April 6, 1986, 9-year-old Antoinette was abducted by 2 men in a brown van from her home. The following year after the disappearance, Gallup, New Mexico police received the following eerie, frantic phone call.
Gallup Police Department. Hello? I'm Antoinette Cayadito. Okay, whereabouts in Albuquerque? Hello? Antoinette, where are you?
4 years later, in Carson, New Mexico, a waitress at a restaurant noticed a couple and a teenage girl who matched the description of Antoinette. After the girl and the couple left, the waitress found the following note under the teenage girl's plate. Antoinette has been missing for 35 years.
What? She had called the police and left that note and nobody still found her?
This Polish woman is claiming to be the missing Madeleine McCann. But did you know there's age progression photos done of Madeleine that could help us know what she would look like today? In 2007, Madeleine was taken from her family's bedroom while they were on vacation in Portugal. And immediately the parents came under fire because they did leave the kids asleep in the apartment by themselves while they went to dinner with friends. This is the official age progressed photo of Madeleine to age 9, and this is the woman who's now claiming that she is Madeleine. And this woman does have some of Madeleine's signature features. Here you can see a black speck that looks like a pupil in Madeleine's eye, which is something they both share. She's also claiming that she has a lot of missing memories from childhood, but the eye speck does seem to be her most convincing argument. But German prosecutors actually believe that Madeleine is no longer alive, and 2 people believe they saw this man carrying a small girl towards the beach around the time that Madeleine's parents first noticed that she was missing. But that being said, it's not completely impossible that she would be alive today.
Hey man, do the DNA testing, bro. That's one of, I guess, the benefits of being, you know, that 21st century, man. They can just test the DNA against one of her relatives and see if they match up. You can put that mystery to rest. One of the benefits of technology. There's drawbacks.
Let's talk about this picture. It centers around Mr. and Mrs. Dubois. They were some of the town of Hackenshaw's favorite neighbors, but they had a dark side to them. But first, we're gonna enjoy some pizza. This is like my favorite pizza. It's from Marco's Pizza. Reminds me of Jersey because I'm from Jersey. You see, they were kind to everyone. Even invited people who just moved into town for dinners. They would also have the best decorations for holidays as well. Their house would always win the contest for best decorated in the town. People just loved their Christmas lights and their Halloween decorations. In the beginning of October 1876, they started throwing parties for the kids. All the kids from around the town would come, even from outside the town. It was fun. They played games, they ate candy, and everyone just had a good time. But out of the 20 kids that came over that night, about 4 went missing. And after about 3 weeks of searching, the case went slow and they gave up. Halloween finally came around, and the contest for the best decorations, of course, went to the Dubois. That night while trick-or-treating, one of the boys in town named Sam went up to one of the decorations. When he grabbed the mask off, he realized it was one of the children who went missing. The child was stuffed and put on display in front of the yard as a decoration. The Dubois, who saw this and not wanting to get caught, grabbed the little kid inside, adding him to their collection. No one suspected a thing because the Dubois was so kind and nice to everyone. It wasn't until years later on their deathbed that they admitted at throwing parties every year to steal a child or 3 and show police that they could find all the missing children in their basement. The reason they did it was because they needed decorations realistic enough so they could always win those contests.
Everybody has double eyes. Can't trust them.
It's this woman, 59-year-old Debbie Collier, who was a mother and office manager who was found charred alive in the northeast of Georgia. But while I'm sitting here and I'm, researching this case, it's even stranger than I thought it was. Something is deeply off with this story. Though here's what we know. September 10th, she is reported missing, and the following day, her van is found, but she's not inside. So the daughter comes forward. She says that, her mom doesn't have any history of mental illness. She wouldn't be trying to hurt herself. So what happened here? Well, later that day, after the van was found, they go deeper into the woods where Debbie is found on a tarp, described as burned alive. But this was a tarp she bought herself at the Dollar Tree, shortly before she was found. Stranger than that, her daughter comes forward and says before she was found, her mom Venmo'd her $2,385, along with this cryptic message. Did that not seem like an oddly specific amount, though?
Most terrifying demonic activity ever caught on camera.
Bobby, is that you? Bobby. I get it. I get it, man. Just gonna stare at each other for what? You got me. I know the fucked up problem is. I keep doing this shit. I'm just gonna stare at him then. Okay, great. Just go to your room. All right. Yeah. I know, Disney. You got me. Jim, you got me. You got me, man. You got me. Okay, it's good.
Could be an edit.
And just stay in your room.
The oldest traceable body on Mount Everest is considered to be that of George Mallory, an English mountaineer who was part of the first British expeditions up the mountain in the early 1920s. He and his hiking partner Andrew Irvine were last seen about 800 feet from the summit before disappearing. In 1999, an expedition up the mountain sought to find Mallory, and they did, well preserved too. Injuries sustained on his body and circumstantial evidence give some idea as to what happened to him, namely that he slipped, fell, and conked himself in the forehead with his own ice axe. Ugh. We still don't know if Mallory and Irvine reached the summit before their fatal accident, but some in the field believe that Mallory did. They also think he left a photo of his wife at the summit because it wasn't on his body when it was found, and he always carried it. We don't know much about Irvine because his body is still unlocated. And on an eerie note, Mallory and Irvine had a camera with them to record the historic event, which, if ever found, would likely give us some fascinating insight into their journey.
Could you guys climb up Mount Everest? I don't know, man. I know that might be on some people's bucket list, but knowing that there's a lot of freaking courses up there and they kind of use it as a marker point, I don't know if I could take that trip. Could you guys? I want to see down below.
Let's talk about this picture. It centers around Mr. and Mrs. Dubois. They were some of the town of Hackenshaw's favorite neighbors, but they had a dark side to them. But first, we We're gonna enjoy some pizza.
He always
This is
eat.
like my favorite pizza. It's from Marco's Pizza. Reminds me of Jersey because I'm from Jersey. You see, they were kind to everyone. Even invited people who just moved into town for dinners. They would also have the best decorations for holidays as well. Their house would always win the contest for best decorated in the town. People just loved their Christmas lights and their Halloween decorations. In the beginning of October 1876, they started throwing parties for the kids. All the kids from around the town would come, even from outside the town. It was fun. They played games, they ate candy, everyone just had a good time. But out of the 20 kids that came over that night, about 4 went missing. And after about 3 weeks of searching, the case went slow and they gave up. Halloween finally came around, and the contest for the best decorations, of course, went to the Dubois. That night while trick-or-treating, one of the boys in town named Sam went up to one of the decorations. When he grabbed the mask off, he realized it was one of the children who went missing. The child was stuffed and put on display in front of the yard as a decoration. The Dubois, who saw this and not wanting to get caught, grabbed the little kid inside, adding him to their collection. No one suspected a thing because the Dubois was so kind and nice to everyone. It wasn't until years later on their deathbed that they admitted at throwing parties every year to steal a child or 3 and told police that they could find all the missing children in their basement. The reason they did it was because they needed decorations realistic enough so they could always win those contests.
So they took kids, man, just because they wanted to win a stupid contest, bro. What going through people's minds, man, when they're doing these acts? To win a contest, it was worth it for that? Ruining people's lives for a dumb contest just to get validation, bro, from people you don't know. Man, bro, people will seek that anywhere and everywhere, bro, and they do things like this that I would never even imagine just to get some validation, bro.
These are serial killers that got caught for being idiots. And yes, this is a series, so make sure you follow along.
Okay.
This is David Berkowitz, also known as the Son of Sam. He's best known for being the serial unaliver who believed that his neighbor's dog was telling him to commit the crimes. And he was really hard to catch. His attacks felt random and lacked pattern, other than the fact that a lot of his victims were women with long brown hair. But the thing that did this man in was that he parked illegally while committing one of the crimes. Celia Davis was out walking her dog one night when she saw a car being ticketed. And then out of nowhere, she sees this figure come towards her with what looks like a gun in his hand. She freaks out and runs away, but hears 2 gunshots get fired behind her. The next day, she learns that 2 people, Stacy Moskowitz and Robert Violante, had been shot in that area. So she calls the police and tells them everything she saw that night. The man with the gun, hearing the gunshots, and seeing the car with the ticket. And the cops did a real quick search through their database and found that the car had been registered to Berkowitz, who was already on their radar. And the second they went to question him about it, he confessed to everything.
Idiots, bro.
Erica's family told her they were going on vacation in Lake Tahoe, when in reality they were dropping her off at a Troubled Teen Wilderness program that she would not survive. Erica Harvey was just 15 years old when she was dropped off at the Catherine Freer Wilderness program. The program promised Erica's family that they could get her off drugs, but the staff were not trained very well. The first day that she was there, the kids all went on a really long hike, and Erica started showing symptoms of dehydration. Erica was also on antipsychotic medication, which was something the staff did not have any experience with. So when she started speaking gibberish and her eyes rolled into the back of her head, they thought she was being dramatic. And when she fell over backwards into a ravine, they completely ignored her. Finally, after an hour, they went to go check on her, but Erica didn't have a pulse. The staff called a medical helicopter, but they didn't know where they were, so they gave them the wrong coordinates. By the time Erica saw a doctor, it was 5 hours later, and she didn't have a chance. And programs like Erica's still exist today, trapping kids like prisoners because they're minors and can't sign themselves out. This week I interviewed a survivor who was gone for 3.5 years in the troubled teen industry because she was 14 years old when she was taken.
Nah, that's messed up. They can't even get this out because they're so young.
On the evening of September 10th, 2002, 31-year-old Miroslav Kuklish was entering an underwater cave off the coast of Croatia, trying to catch up with his 4 dive buddies. He had entered the water about 10 minutes after them because while they were on the surface, the 4 had explained to him that they were going to check out this underwater cave. But Miroslav had told them he wanted nothing to do with this cave, he was just going to go on an open water night dive. So they said okay, and they went without him. Unbeknownst to Miroslav, as soon as the 4 had entered this 2-meter wide hole in the bottom of the ocean, they had immediately recognized it was well beyond their skill level, and they had turned around and gotten right out of there. Unbeknownst to them, though, Miroslav had made the exact opposite decision, and as soon as he got in the water, he went right down to the cave entrance and barreled down after him, and I mean, he really went for it. Now, the way that this cave is set up is there's a 15-meter deep chute, which leads to two different passageways, which lead to two different underwater caverns, the shallower one, or the upper gallery, and the deeper one, the lower gallery. The bottom of the lower gallery is about 54 meters or 180 feet deep. Okay, so what Miroslav does is he dives down this 15-meter corridor. Now, bear in mind, the walls are super narrow in these corridors, and you're kicking up silt the whole time, so you can't see anything. And where the three meet, it's almost impossible to tell which is which, because again, you can't see, and unless you know this cave like the back of your hand, I mean, being underwater is really disorienting. You don't know if you're going to the deep one, the shallow one, or up to the exit. It's kind of just a guess if you don't really know the cave. So he goes immediately down, and he goes immediately into the deep gallery. He makes it all the way down to 165 feet before he realizes he needs to turn around and get out of there. So he makes his ascent back up, and he makes his way back up to where the three separate again. And he needs to find the exit. But instead of finding the exit, he goes into the shallow gallery. And now he is running out of air, and he really needs to find the exit. So he goes back up to where they all three separate, and he's doing this probably mostly by feel now, because again, with the silt, you can't see. So he has a 50-50 shot. But instead of picking the exit, he picks the way he just came from, and he goes back down into the deep gallery. And at this point, we know when he hits the deep gallery again, he runs out of air. And he finds that shallow air pocket at the top of the deep gallery, but he's only got a few minutes of air in that little pocket, and he knows that. We know he was there for 5 minutes from his dive computer before he ultimately decides that instead of drowning, he's going to take his dive knife and end things his way. So he takes out his dive knife, and he drives it 11 centimeters all the way to the hilt into the left side of his chest. Unfortunately, he would still drown a few minutes after this. We know this from the autopsy report. A police diver would also drown trying to recover.
This is not a fucking joke.
Now, a lot of people have been tagging me in this video, so I'm here to explain the backstory to this whole thing. Now, before I begin the video, I have an announcement to make. First things first, I just posted my first YouTube video on the Sylvia Likens case, so if you want to check that out, please do. Link is in the bio. You can also make fun of me for my old YouTube videos. I don't care. Also, in spirit of Scream 6 coming out tomorrow.
And has a creepy history. Visitors who have explored there say that once they enter, it's otherworldly in there. Creepy. First of all, it's reportedly completely silent. You can't hear birds, animals, bugs, nothing. A researcher compared entering the heart of Dudleytown to standing inside a recording studio booth. Another common complaint from visitors is that a lot of the photos they take in Dudleytown won't develop, but as soon as they leave, their cameras will work just fine. Which makes sense, as I had a really hard time finding really any photos of Dudleytown when I was researching. The creepy legend of the town is years ago the Dudley family fled to the US after one of their family members was taken care of after plotting against King Henry VIII. They settled in Connecticut and the bad luck followed. Residents of Dudleytown began suffering a series of devastating crop failures and mental illness was rampant in the village. There were countless mysterious disappearances within the village and all-around chaos overwhelmed Dudleytown. By the early 1900s, it was completely abandoned. For fans of the Conjuring films based on paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren, the two visited Dudleytown and outright declared that it was extremely haunted and controlled by something terrifying. Investigators agreed that Dudleytown is some kind of a portal. But here's where it goes from spooky to downright bizarre. The owners, the Dark Entry Forest Association, closed Dudleytown to the public and don't do anything to dispel the rumors. In fact, they refuse to be interviewed for the most part, and the owners go to great lengths to conceal their identities. On top of that, if you are caught trespassing in Dudleytown, you will be heavily prosecuted. This is so strange to me. We see so many other ghost towns around the world, and usually they keep these places open for tourism. You know, profit off the history and the spookiness. But for some reason, this association wants to keep people out of Dudleytown altogether. A paranormal researcher said there's some kind of secret that they are keeping there, and they want people to stay out. What are your thoughts? This has been requested a couple times. Has anyone ever been? Or are there any towns by you that you find to be really creepy?
It's a portal, bro. That's what they said. Is maybe some bad energy coming out of
May
there.
1st, 2020, in Charleston County, South Carolina, 58-year-old Cynthia Kohberger was over at her friend and client Barbara's house doing Barbara's nails. And they were doing this appointment on Barbara's enclosed back porch, which overlooked her yard and then a large freshwater pond. Now, Barbara would later state that Cynthia was acting very strangely. Normally, she would be very, very professional, but today, not so much. She was talking a lot. She was just super bubbly. She was talking about her boyfriend who was coming to visit, and it was just totally unlike her. And she had showed up with a bottle of wine, although Barbara said she didn't witness her drink any of it. But anyways, the appointment carries on, and about halfway through, Cynthia looks over at the pond, and she notices that just off the bank in the water, there is a 10-foot or just over 3-meter long American alligator. And she's fascinated by this. And Barbara says, oh yeah, he's been here for the last 20 years. We just don't mess with him. So the appointment continues on and they finish up. And when they do, Barbara begins to tidy up the porch, move chairs back where they were. When she turns around and notices that Cynthia has made her way down through the yard to the bank, and she's standing really close to this alligator taking pictures of it on her cell phone. And Barbara immediately begins to yell and scream at her, hey, get back from there. I witnessed this alligator take a deer off the shore just yesterday. And Cynthia yells back at Barbara, and she says, well, I don't look like a deer. Now, Barbara's husband at this point can hear this commotion, and so can a next-door neighbor, and both men make their way outside when Cynthia does the unthinkable. She steps in the water with the alligator, and she reaches out, and she's going to try and pet it. And as soon as she does this 10-foot long alligator lunges forward and grabs her by the left leg and begins to drag her out into deeper water. The two men start sprinting down to the water. The neighbor grabs a rope. They get down there at the same time, and the neighbor throws the rope out to Cynthia. She grabs it, and now the two men are having a tug of war between them and this alligator for Cynthia. And then Cynthia would look up at them and just very calmly say, well, I guess that's the last time I'll ever do that. And then this alligator would put her into a death roll. And it would take her underwater, and they would not see her again. They called the police, the fire department, the police show up. For 15 minutes, they don't see anything. But then the alligator surfaces. It's still got Cynthia's body in its mouth, and then it immediately takes her back down before it resurfaces again. The police shoot the alligator 5 times, once in the head, 4 more times. It releases her, they retrieve her body, which is intact, but her left leg was totally mangled, and she had unfortunately drowned in that 15 minutes.
How is she trying to pet that?
Live on Facebook Live. On January 8th of this year, 28-year-old Nansen Orris Beltran went with her mom, 55-year-old Olivia Lucia Beltran, to a Santa Rosa police station. Nansen needed to go there because she needed to pick up her vehicle after it was impounded following an earlier chase. While at the police station, she filmed herself waving an open pocket knife in front of everybody. An officer stated that she was too mentally unstable to drive, but they still let her go home. At 5 p.m. that same day, Nansen was on Facebook Live when she stabbed her mother. Viewers of the live ended up contacting police to let them know what they had just witnessed. When officers arrived to the scene, they noticed that Nansen was on her balcony holding a knife in her hand. Right next to her was her mother, and her clothes were just soaked in blood. Nansen failed to respond to commands, so a group of officers broke through the front door and she was arrested. Olivia suffered from numerous stab wounds and was rushed to a local hospital. Unfortunately, the surgeons were unable to overcome the extensive life-threatening injuries and she passed away. Detectives worked with Meta/Facebook and had the video removed. Nansen was arrested on 1 count of murder and was being held without bail at Marin County Jail. To this day, there is still no clear motive on why she did this to her mother.
This man willingly allowed himself to be eaten alive by a cannibal. 43-year-old Armando Brands was an engineer from Berlin who always fantasized about being cannibalized by another human being. So, in 2001, he began searching the website Cannibal Cafe, which was, yes, a legitimate website, for anyone willing to cook him and eat him. On the Cannibal Cafe website, that Brands met 30-year-old computer technician Arman Muse. Arman also had a fantasy of cannibalizing human flesh, and so over the next few weeks, him and Brands messaged each other back and forth, discussing the best way to cook Brands' flesh and then dispose of his body after they were done. Finally, on March 9, 2001, Armando traveled to Arman's apartment and willingly allowed himself to be tied up before Arman began to try and chew off Armando's penis. Arman found that the penis was too chewy to bite off, so he instead castrated Armando with a knife before frying his severed penis in olive oil and then feeding it to him. After this, Arman proceeded to kill Armando by stabbing him in the neck and letting him bleed out in the bathtub for over 3 hours before he finally succumbed to his wounds. After Armando died, Arman proceeded to cut up his body into large chunks, storing them in a freezer, and over the next 6 months he would consume over 44 pounds of Armando's flesh. Arman would be caught 6 months later after looking for another victim on the Cannibal Cafe website. Now, at first, prosecutors weren't sure how to go about this case because Armando willingly allowed all this to happen, and they know this because Arman recorded the entire thing. The castration, eating of the penis, and the entire time Armando was telling Arman that he wanted more. However, since people can't consent to their own murder, Arman was eventually found guilty and sentenced to life in prison. However, to this day, he still gets weekly visits out to the city where he can roam about and do as he pleases.
How the hell can he just get weekly roamings? And a website like that, man, actually existed. Blow my damn mind, man. Nowadays, man, I shouldn't be surprised, but you probably type in anything, man, on the web, it'll pop right back up, man. Stuff that shouldn't even be allowed, like cannibalism. Somebody want to be eating online, and they found it just like that. It's internet, man. It gives you too much easy access to things we shouldn't have.
Because you are guilty, aren't you? Are you guilty, sir?
I accept my plea. Exactly.
Much as it was my honor and privilege to hear the sister survivors, it is my honor and privilege to sentence you. Because, sir, you do not deserve to walk outside of a prison ever again. You have done nothing to control those urges. The decision to assault was precise, calculated, manipulative, devious, despicable. I'm giving you 175 years, which is 2,100 months. I just signed your death warrant.
Damn.
I need everyone to be quiet.
These villagers dig up.
Wasn't I think I remember seeing that case. Wasn't he like already? But didn't he work with like the Olympic team or something like that? And how he had that many access, man, because he was like a sports coach or something. And he got what he deserved. She signed, like she said, she signed his death warrant, man. They were clapped as they should have been, bro.
Up their dead family members every 3 years, and you won't believe why. These people are from a village in Indonesia, and during the Reindeer festival, they get their ancestors' corpses, clean them, then put them all out to dry, and dress them in new clothes as a ritual. And the reason is because they believe they're showing them love and respect.
Different cultures have they do different things, but it's kind of bizarre, man. Could you guys do that? I can't even think about doing that, burying up. Digging up your loved ones.
The legend of Bunnyman Bridge. In 1904, not far from this bridge in Fairfax County, Virginia, was a mental asylum. Nearby residents didn't like the fact that mental patients were near their new homes, so they had it shut down. While the patients were being transported, their bus crashed, and all were found except for one. A patient named Douglas Griffin, who disappeared into the nearby woods. In the upcoming weeks, bodies of rabbits were found strewn about the woods as if someone was eating them. On Halloween night, Douglas Griffin struck and killed a group of teenagers that were hanging out underneath of the bridge. They were gutted and hanged like dead rabbits. Now there is a ton of variations of this urban legend, but there is a slight bit of truth behind the origin of it. There was a police report from 1970 that said a person dressed in all white threw a hatchet at somebody's car. And the person had something on their heads. And that is where people filled in the blanks with it being rabbit ears. There was another report of a man running around with a hatchet and a bunny suit also in 1970. Who knows? Maybe there really was a killer bunny man.
This man has been sentenced to 100
years in
prison after doing the unthinkable to his daughter.
Tony Valles is a 66-year-old from Helena. On the 10th of July 2022, he was at home with his partner Heather. Tony's 8-year-old daughter Ariana and his 18-year-old son were also at the house at the time. Suddenly, 2 women entered the property who he believed were evicting him. He flew into a violent rage and grabbed a weapon from his bedroom. At this point, he began shooting. He shot Heather and she fell to the floor, and then he shot at his son. His 8-year-old daughter tried to escape and run from the terror, but she was hit with gunfire. She was on the stairs when she was hit by a bullet and she fell back. She tragically died after being rushed to hospital. After his daughter's death, Tony stated, "I'm sorry for all this. I can't undo what I've done. The pain and the misery will last a lifetime, and I'm sorry for all that." Tony was sentenced to serve 100 years in prison.
This is the most unsettling show I've seen.
Disturbing things.
Netflix just released a show called Baby Reindeer, where a man named Donnie is relentlessly stalked by a middle-aged woman named Martha. But it's based on a real story, and the guy it happened to is playing the main character. So let's talk about the real events the show portrays. So in the show, Martha's obsession with Donnie starts after he offers a cup of tea for free. And according to the creator, that is really what started her 4-year obsession with him. Also, over the course of the stalking, the real Martha sent the creator 41,071 emails, 744 tweets, 46 Facebook messages, 106 pages of letters, and 350 hours of voicemail
She was
messages.
dedicated.
And the real texts and emails are featured in the show. One of the saddest real details of the show is that the creator does go to the police to try to report Martha, and they totally brush him off. They just don't feel like she's enough of a threat, even though she's showing up to all of his comedy shows, she's sending him that many messages, and she fully believes they're in a relationship. And the show is really interesting in that it portrays the gray area that the creator, Richard Gadd, faced while experiencing being stalked. This is a bit of a spoiler, but he himself was a survivor of sexual assault, so in a way, this kind of undying love was something that he craved. And in interviews, he says that he's not purely a victim, that this situation is really gray because sometimes he would indulge in the attention that she gave him. It's definitely worth watching if you haven't seen it already. It does get very intense at times, but let me know if you've seen it.
I seen that scrolling through Netflix a couple times on a recommended, but I really didn't know what it was about. But now that it's broken down for us, man. Any fellow seekers, they gonna check it out, man? Should I check it out? You guys can leave a review. I might have to check that out. Edit. Call it like I see it.
His life was taken for laugh reacting to a Facebook photo.
No way.
This is 18-year-old Isaiah Craig Fitzgerald, and he was from Missouri. On May 25th of 2023, Isaiah had came across this photo of 20-year-old Tanner Watkins and his girlfriend. He reacts to the Facebook photo with a laughing emoji. Tanner ends up responding to Isaiah saying, "What's funny?" and an argument begins. Tanner then ends up telling Isaiah that they should meet at a park to fight after a heated exchange. At the agreed upon location, shots were fired from both vehicles. Isaiah was fatally shot and his girlfriend was seriously wounded. Police had responded to the scene after receiving reports of gunfire, and they stopped both vehicles as they were leaving. Isaiah was pronounced dead and his girlfriend was transported to a local hospital where doctors treated her injuries. Officers ended up confiscating weapons from both vehicles. Tanner and 18-year-old Caleb Ramsey were both taken into custody. Both pled not guilty to all charges and were acquitted in December of 2023. The judge had ordered a mistrial after the jury could not agree on a verdict. Tanner and Caleb were charged with 3 counts of murder, 3 counts of assault, unlawful use of a weapon, and 4 counts of armed criminal action.
The most terrifying prisoners of all time. This is Jamie Osuna, the man with 1,000 faces. In 2017, Jamie was sentenced to life in prison for the 2011 murder and torture of a woman from Bakersfield. During his court case, you can see him smirking, rolling his eyes, and mocking the family of the deceased, even giving a thumbs up as the judge announces his sentence. From there, he is transported to Corcoran State Prison, where things got worse. Way worse. He is given a cellmate, Luis Romero, who had spent
more than 2 decades in prison himself. On March 9th, 2019, guards checked their cell and find the most gruesome scene. Romero had been beheaded and several of his body parts were removed and fashioned into a necklace worn by Jamie. Ha 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 had been written on the wall in blood, as well as the man with 1,000 faces.
Someone that freaking dangerous, man. He had to be probably put into solitary like as soon as he got there, man, because obviously during the case you show saying they were showing no remorse, man, putting a thumbs up during the trial, and telling, man, those are the most dangerous people, man, who can do an action like that have no remorse. And look what happened. The man with 1,000 faces, man. Crazy. Haha, blood. That sounds like the Joker would do.
Prosecutors in the Bryan Kohberger case have said that they are not buying his alibi. Kohberger's defense has spent months giving very few details about his alibi, essentially only saying that he was out driving around the night of the murders and that nobody could corroborate this. But then a couple weeks ago, they said that they have an expert witness that can testify about Kohberger's cell phone movements the night of the murders, placing him away from the house. But prosecutors are not buying it, and specifically, they said, quote, the defendant's alibi lacks specificity and state the specific place or places at which the defendant claims to have been at the time of the alleged offense, and the names and addresses of the witnesses upon whom he intends to rely to establish such alibi, according to Idaho Code 19-519. So essentially, the prosecution is saying that Kohberger's alibi is not specific enough, and just because an expert witness can testify about his cell phone movements does not mean that it's a corroborating alibi and that they need specific witnesses to be able to verify his alibi for it to be a proper alibi. The next hearing for the case has been scheduled for May 2nd. Other updates in the Kohberger case include that prosecutors are also moving to have the following hearing after the May 2nd hearing on May 14th be under seal. This is essentially to protect the information that is being disseminated to the public that could potentially taint the jury pool. And speaking of the potential jury pool, the judge has ruled that the defense can continue their surveys of the potential jury pool to determine if the potential jury pool knows about Bryan Kohberger, because the defense is trying to get a change of venue. But that's all for the latest updates with Bryan Kohberger. Things are just continuing to slowly move along.
The longest prison sentence
justice in that case.
At number 5 is Joseph Legend. He has served 67 years and 54 days in prison, and he was released earlier this year. He was convicted of murder at the age of 15. He was released at 83. At number 4 is Joseph Phillips, who served 68 years and 236 days. He was convicted in 1952 of raping a 5-year-old girl. He was paroled in March 2021. Third, with only 9 more days in prison, is Paul Goodell Jr. He served 68 years and 245 days. He was incarcerated in 1911 at the age of 17. He was released in 1980 at the age of 86. Once released, he died in a retirement home 7 years later at the age of 93. In second place, and the only non-American on the list, is an Australian man by the name of Charles Fawcett. He was sentenced to life imprisonment after murdering an elderly man and stealing his boots. And before number 1, right, I'll go to prison next in the comments and leave your autocorrect finished. He'll write that you'll go to jail. And in number 1, it's Francis Clifford Smith. He's currently serving 72 years and 90 days. He was also sentenced to death for the murder of a night watchman on his way out of a nightclub. But his sentence was changed to life imprisonment in 1954, 2 hours before his scheduled execution. He was lucky.
Changed just like that. All that time gone. Basically, if you get over 50 or 60 years, that's a life sentence, man. Once you get out, all that time's wasted, man. Think before you act.
Signs of a societal collapse in a country are so often things you would never even think about. For example, a shocking study was recently published showing a concerning rise in people being found so long after death in the UK that their body had decomposed. And we're not talking about just days and weeks here. The study cited a number of cases like 38-year-old Laura Winham, who struggled with mental health problems and was found in a mummified, almost skeletal state at her flat in 2021, more than 3 years after she had died. She passed away in 2017, 3 years before the pandemic even began. The body of another 61-year-old woman, Shalia, was found badly decomposed in her flat in London in 2022, 2 years after she had died. The study said that men were more than twice as likely as women to be discovered long after death in a decomposed state, and also linked this tragic trend to loneliness, societal breakdown, and a loss of people's social connection. And that is sadly why
a 20-year-old cold case has had a major breakthrough after an eerie twist led to police identifying a teenage girl's remains. Midtown Jane Doe was found mysteriously entombed in cement in a former New York hotspot during construction in 2003. Investigators believe she was fatally strangled, bound with electrical wire, and wrapped in a carpet before being cemented into the building's basement. Now, Midtown Jane Doe has been identified as Patricia Kathleen McGlone, a girl from Brooklyn who was last seen in the late 1960s. DNA from a woman killed in the 9/11 attacks, also named Patricia, helped authorities identify the girl, as the two were related.
Gruesome facts
They both had the name Patricia, man, and that link is what led to that case breaking all those years ago. The things that we can line up in the universe in order for that to happen. This is crazy if you think about it.
You didn't know, part 262. On August 17th of 1980, 9-week-old Azaria Chamberlain disappeared from the tent during a family camping trip. Mother Lindy reported she saw a wild dog leaving the tent and believed that her baby had been taken by dingoes in the Australian outback. Despite a frantic search, nothing was found and no body was ever discovered. Extensive press coverage of the incident portrayed the couple as monsters, and they received multiple death threats. Believing that the police were feeding information to the media, the entire court case was a madhouse and the public opinion hugely divided. Some believing they murdered their own child, others believing that dingoes really did take their baby. Their religious background stirred up rumors that cult-like activity had taken place, and at the time, dingoes were not generally seen as dangerous. But despite all the horrible and negative publicity, Lindy and husband Michael continued to plead their innocence. But on October 29th of 1982, she was sentenced to life in prison for murder, with Michael being charged as an accessory and sentenced to 18 months. After she spent 4 long years in prison and had no more legal routes to take, new evidence was discovered. Azaria's jacket was found partially buried in a highly populated dingo area. This led to her prison release in 1988, and both her and Michael were completely exonerated of all charges. In 2012, a coroner issued the final report on the case, confirming that their baby had been taken and eaten by dingoes.
So she was right all along, man. It goes to show you how sometimes, like, public opinion, it's a powerful thing, man, because if you get the public on your side, it can get people to believe anything, even if it's untrue. Scary times we live in.
Breaking news, the remains of 6 women have been found inside of a man's apartment. Authorities say the investigation began when he allegedly broke into a neighbor's apartment on April 16th. From there, he essayed and strangled a 17-year-old girl. The victim's mother returned home shortly after and saw the man leaving. It was at that point he slashed her throat and then fled. According to authorities, the mother was able to survive, however, the daughter did not. With the mother's assistance, they were able to identify the suspect only as, quote, Miguel. After the incident, they searched his apartment and, quote, clearly indicated we are looking at a possible serial killer of women. Authorities also confirmed that notebooks were located that, quote, may well be narrations of the acts that Miguel carried out against his victims. In addition, they found cell phones and ID cards belonging to multiple women. They said that 5 of the ID cards found belonged to women who have been located alive. However, they did not specify how many belonged to women who are still missing or deceased. Prosecutors did confirm that there were remains of 6 women found in his rented room. Quote, other biological material was also found in the rooms. In addition to the ID cards and cell phones found, they also found bones, B-L-O-O-D, and a saw. At this time, authorities have not provided any further details. To stay up to date on this case, make sure you click the playlist below. What do you guys think? Drop in the comments.
This is a cannibal that used the gay dating app Grindr to find victims so he could eat them. So on Christmas Eve 2019, 25-year-old Kevin Bacon told his roommate that he was going out for the evening to meet up with a man that he had recently been talking to on the dating app Grindr. Now, after 3 days, Kevin failed to come home or contact any of his friends or family, and they started to get worried, and they eventually went to the police to issue a missing persons warning. Later on the day that he was reported missing, Kevin's car was actually found abandoned in a parking lot, along with all of his clothes and his cell phone. Using his cell phone, police were able to actually access his Grindr account and see that the last person he had messaged on there was a man named Mark Lutunsky. Police were able to track down Mark Lutunsky, and they asked him if they could look around his house for a bit, and he actually happily agreed. However, when police went down to the basement, they made an absolutely horrific discovery. Hanging from the rafters by his ankles was the nude body of Kevin Bacon. His throat had been slashed, his body had been drained of blood, and most shocking of all, he had actually been castrated. Upon further questioning, Mark happily admitted that he had actually castrated Kevin and then brought up his testicles and ate them, and that he was planning to use a food dehydrator on the rest of Kevin's body so he could preserve it and eat it later. After Mark was arrested for the death of Kevin, police actually discovered that he had had several previous run-ins with the law in the months leading up to the death. 2 men on 2 previous occasions actually called 911 stating that they had escaped from Mark's basement after he drugged them, tied them up, and was planning to torture them. In both cases, police just chalked it up to a gay dispute, and they didn't actually look further into it. Mark was quickly found guilty of Kevin's death, and now he's currently serving life in prison.
This man vanished from the top of a mountain in New York and was found 6 days later in California with no memory how he got there. This is easily one of the most bizarre disappearances and reappearances that I've ever heard of. If you've never heard of this story before, buckle up because it's wild. 49-year-old Canadian firefighter Danny was skiing at White Base Mountain in New York when he vanished. It was the last day of their ski trip. All of Danny's friends had gotten tired and had headed back down to the ski lodge to wait for Danny, who wanted to do one more trip down the mountain, but Danny never returned. Danny was missing on top of one of the highest mountains in the area. Everyone's thinking that there must have been some kind of terrible accident. All of Danny's belongings are still back at his resort: his car, his passport, his ID, his phone. A huge manhunt was being done on the mountain, but as the days went by, the chances of finding Danny alive were slim. Then, 6 days after he vanished, Danny was found alive on the complete other side of the country, over 2,500 miles away in California. Danny was still wearing the ski outfit that he disappeared in 6 days earlier, with a new haircut, a new cell phone, and no memory of the past 6 days. Eventually, Danny was able to recall that he believes that he was the passenger in a big rig truck at one of those points and thought that he must have suffered some kind of head injury. But he had an examination at a hospital that found that he had 0 injuries at all. Extensive investigations were done in both California and New York that brought forth no answers. 6 months after Danny disappeared, he was able to recall a couple more big details, but honestly it wasn't much. Now here are some of the most highly believed theories that you can find online. Could Danny have gotten a concussion on the mountain that resulted in some kind of memory loss? It sounds plausible, but a lot of doctors that have looked at this case have said that it's unlikely because memory loss after head trauma usually only lasts at most 48 hours, not 6 days. And apparently Danny didn't even have any injuries to begin with when he was found. Some also believe that maybe Danny was abducted by aliens who dropped him back off on the wrong side of the country. Some people also believe that maybe Danny wanted to disappear on purpose and start a new life, but then got cold feet. Honestly, I have no idea what I think happened. This story for real sounds like something out of fiction. To this day, we still have no idea what happened to Danny during those 6 days that he was missing, but let me know what you think happened in the comments.
This is the Hello Kitty murder case, and it's one of the most gruesome true crime stories you may ever hear about. This happened in 1999, and Fan here was abducted by 3 men and a girl. Fan Man Yu was then held inside of a flat that one of the killers rented out for about a month. She was tortured and beaten, and they even tried to pimp her out. And apparently she was hung up and used as a punching bag. They even went as far as burning up her legs so that she couldn't even walk. She also had no real food to eat. They forced her to eat human feces. After that immense stress her body went through, she died after a little over a month being held captive there. This is where things get even crazier. They cut up her body, dismembered her completely, and then cooked up her head. They then stuffed her half-cooked head into a Hello Kitty mermaid doll. Investigators found this and found many insects inside of it as well. The rest of her dismembered body was discarded somewhere. The only pieces of evidence the investigators found was the skull inside of the Hello Kitty doll, some teeth on the ground, and organs in the freezer. Reading this story makes me just feel so horrible for Fan Manny and the torture she went through. This is definitely the worst true crime case I've ever read about, and then there are just so many more details I can't even say. Let me know what you guys think about this case in the comment section below, and as always, these videos are for informational purposes only.
It's definitely one of the darkest cases, man, we heard.
Sent it to her friend. This is 20-year-old Emma Rigdon from St. Louis, Missouri. On April 15th of this year, Emma was with her son when she slapped his leg and put her hand over his nose and mouth. Obviously, this was preventing him from breathing. Emma decided to record this incident and send it to a friend.
What the
She also recorded another video of her covering her son's face with a blanket in her hand. This caused the boy to cry and grab at the blanket. Once she sent that video to her friend, she also sent a handful of text messages. The first text said, "I don't know, when I do that, I feel an adrenaline rush."
Yeah, she's
the
weird.
next text said, "I stopped right before he dies. Last time he was blue." The last twisted text she sent said, "I really want to unalive him, but I don't want to go to jail. It's unfortunate, but he's just going to have to pay for his existence." The boy ended up surviving his wounds, and now someone else is taking care of him. Emma was arrested and charged with abuse or neglect of a child.
Yeah, she should.
She remains in jail without bond.
The most disturbing cults in history, Part 1. These are the Anthill Kids, founded by this man, Roch Theriot, in Quebec, Canada. These events took place throughout the 70s and 80s. Using his excellent charismatic skills, he actually convinced a group of people to quit their jobs and follow him, promising unity and equality. He forbid them contact with their family and moved them out to the mountains. He called it Eternal Mountain. In 1978, he prepared for doomsday, having his followers build a town that could save them. He relaxed while they worked and compared them to ants on an anthill. To gain more followers and keep them devoted, he impregnated all female members. They were also forced to wear the same outfit, promoting equality.
Those are some dangerous people, man, who can, like, control and manipulate you like that. And just make you go against your family. Those are some dangerous people, man. Definitely gonna have to stay away from them. Isn't that Prince Harry? She didn't look like she was smiling. Fake relationship? What? It's a facade? Is that what they're trying to tell us? You know, there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes with the Warrior family. It wouldn't be a surprise, would it? Edit. Gotta call it out like I said.
Here are some morbid facts about the Chernobyl nuclear disaster. Following the radiation leak, there were an estimated 150,000 abortions across Eastern Europe due to radiophobia. Many parents didn't want their babies to be born with mutations, even though the risk for most was quite low. Vasily Ignatenko was one of the first firemen to respond to the nuclear leak. After being exposed, he suffered in constant excruciating pain for 18 days before dying. He reportedly excreted blood more than 25 times per day and coughed up pieces of his own organs in those final days. When Pripyat was abandoned, people weren't allowed to bring their pets with them. Instead, firing squads were sent door to door to shoot pet cats and dogs so that they wouldn't transfer the radiation. Local ranchers noticed a dramatic increase in the genetic mutations of their animals following the leak. Some of the abnormalities included extra limbs and body parts in the wrong locations. It's been more than 4 decades since the Chernobyl accident, but experts estimate that Pripyat will remain uninhabitable for another 20,000 years.
This is the first day my Barbie became alive. It was trying to walk, so I helped it. I made a huge mistake. My Barbie is learning to talk in Ohio now.
That's weird. Barbie's alive?
Two of the foremost haunted dolls in the world. First is the Annabelle doll, which inspired the Conjuring movies.
properties, which as you guys know is one of the most haunted dolls in the world. She's able to not only move herself, but also move objects, and is supposedly inhabited by an extremely demonic being, forcing her to constantly be in a spirit box. Then have Ruby, which in my opinion is one of the most terrifying due to the fact that it's a porcelain doll, which all of our mothers and grandmothers have. Ruby doesn't do anything crazy, but the scariest part is supposedly the ancestor who had this doll prior passed while holding this doll, and now supposedly inhabits it. And it's a porcelain doll, which makes it absolutely terrifying. Then have Letta, who's a 200-year-old doll found underneath a house in Australia, said to make noises in the night, moved by itself, and the owner has a specific account of when he was moving he heard this doll scream while being in the trunk, screaming, "Let me out." I'm good on everything that. Then you have Robert the doll, who in my opinion is probably the most haunted and cursed doll on this list, said to be so cursed that if you take a picture or look at him without his permission, he can curse you. And this has happened to multiple people who decided to film Robert without his permission. This doll not only moves by itself, the previous owner has made multiple statements of hearing this doll run inside of the attic. On top of that, the neighbors have seen Robert peeking out the window in the second story, while no one was up there. These dolls, they're scary.
I'm not a dolls person, bro. I gotta keep the dolls away from me, man. They're just creepy to me. Was that doll alive to the last one? Did we believe that, Seekers?
Have you guys heard of the Night Lady? This all started in Chihuahua, Mexico, 2009. Residents started noticing something really disturbing. You see, now some of the children in the area were going missing. I gotta grab some food for this one. Look at this beautiful roll. Now with all the children around the area going missing, people started reporting seeing a woman. They said she would climb on the rooftops during the day, only to wait till night to sneak in through the window to snatch children. Police then sketched an image of what they believed to be the Night Lady. Only one child has been reported of actually escaping the Night Lady. You see, his parents had ran into the room and caught her just in time. She quickly then escaped and crawled out of the window. Wait, before I continue, let's say the Night Lady had taken you. Your third act has to come and save you. Who is it? Let me know who it is. Anyways, the kid that got away recounted waking up in the middle of the night and seeing the Night Lady standing over top of him just watching him. People have brushed this off as just one big hoax. Until after midnight, a teenage girl had captured this photo. This is supposedly the Night Lady.
4K. Gotta believe when the kids are saying
This
that.
is the scariest story about I'm Sorry Mommy. One night, a woman was in the kitchen reading a newspaper when she suddenly looked up and saw her 6-year-old son staring at her. She said, "Something wrong, dear?" "I had a nightmare," said the boy, "and I can't sleep." "Well, don't worry, you're safe now," said the mother. "I dreamed I was in bed and heard a sound in Daddy's room," he said. "And when I looked in the door, I saw 2 big black things with white eyes. It came out of the closet and it attacked Daddy." "Don't worry," said the mother in a soothing voice. "It was just a dream. It didn't really happen." The boy then continued saying they ripped him into pieces and then ate him after. And they even licked the blood off the floor. "I thought if I ran away they wouldn't catch me, but they did. They were going to eat me, but they stopped and said, they wouldn't eat me if I promised to..." "To what?" said the mother. "Promise to distract you while they creep up behind you." "I'm sorry, Mommy," said the boy as the mother heard the floorboards behind her creak. The boy then watched with enjoyment as his mother was ripped apart piece by piece, with a giant smile on his face.
This is the most terrifying McDonald's you'll ever see. In 1986, the first floating McDonald's called the McBarge opened up. The plan was for the boat to travel around the world and for people to enjoy McDonald's everywhere. But then something crazy happened. The 5 employees that lived on the boat went crazy. They started to hear voices at night and even began hallucinating. All of this slowly started driving them insane. After 3 years of this, one fry cook decided enough was enough. She decided to end her life. Her body was discovered on this very boat the next morning. The McDonald's were forced to close and was even abandoned for over 20 years. It seemed like everyone forgot about this floating nightmare. This was the case until 2 years ago when a company decided to renovate the boat. And this article was published about renovating the boat. But a year later, there was still no news about it. And the McBarge was still abandoned. But then a couple YouTubers decided to swim and break into the McBarge. As they went around, everything was eerily silent. Life can fall off apart too.
Yeah, that didn't even make like national news. You would think something like that would, right, Seekers? A floating McDonald's? Yeah, we ain't heard nothing about that. Why is that? Gotta put our thinking caps on for that one.
This girl killed her mum and then texted a photo of her body to her dad. In 2013, Rachel Hudson and her family were supposed to be celebrating Thanksgiving at their home in Virginia. However, the holiday would take a horrendously sinister turn. Rachel's mum was terminally ill 58-year-old Susan Lee. Rachel had been her mum's carer since she was just 9 years old.
Oh.
On the evening in question, Rachel and her dad got into an argument. When her dad left the house the next day to make the most of the Black Friday sales, Rachel did something unthinkable. She took a weapon out of the wardrobe and loaded it. She apparently thought about unaliving herself at this point, but she didn't want to put her mum through the trauma of finding her body. She then walked into the room where her mum was and said, "I'm sorry, this is what has to happen." Her mum apparently told her, "You're crazy," and this is the point where Rachel killed her mum. When she texted her dad to break the news to him, he obviously didn't believe what she was saying. She then took a photo of her mum's body and texted it over to her dad. Rachel was sentenced initially to 50 years in prison, but this was reduced to 18 years because of an apparent undiagnosed mental illness.
This is the scariest song in the world,
getting that
and here's
message,
why.
bro.
Okay, so we all heard this song before, especially if you're into scary things and watch the Insidious movies. But do you know the very disturbing and chilling backstory behind this song? Well, the song is called Tiptoe Through the Tulips, and it was recorded and released in 1968 by American singer Tiny Tim.
Alright.
And when the song was first released, it didn't have the scary reputation it has now. However, this would change during his last ever live performance of the song. On September 28, 1996, Tiny Tim suffered a heart attack that was pretty miniature while performing at a music festival. And after this happened, his doctors advised him that he wasn't healthy enough to perform on stage anymore. However, Tiny Tim ignored the advice from his doctors and scheduled another concert at a women's club in Minnesota the next month. But right before his performance, he told his wife that he wasn't feeling that good. Nevertheless, Tiny Tim decided to go on stage anyway. And after performing the last song of the night, he suffered a major heart attack on stage and died in front of the crowd. And the song he was performing was Tiptoe Through the Tulips. This song was already terrifying, but it's 100 times more terrifying after knowing this. Now listen to it again after knowing this.
It's a different vibe. And shows and movies using that, no one happened, man. There's always a dark story.
On March 19th, 2024, in Mississippi, 14-year-old Carly Gregg made a phone call to one of her friends saying, quote, "Do you want to see a body?" Moments after making the call, Carly's stepfather walked into the home to see his wife, Ashley Smiley, unalived from gunshot wounds. Ashley was a loved individual who friends and family claimed she was a, quote, "loving and caring teacher who wanted the best for her students." When her stepfather entered the home, at the same moment, Carly pulled out a gun and in the midst of the struggle, he was able to successfully disarm her, leaving Carly to escape the home, going on the run. It did not take police long to find and arrest her, and in most cases, children will be tried as a juvenile, but in Carly's case, she'll be tried as an adult for the unaliving of her mother and the attempted unaliving of her stepfather. From what I read on Reddit, people seem to be split 50-50 as they believe she should not be tried as an adult. What are your thoughts?
Why did she even do that, man? That's the real question we need to be asking. The story behind it. Need details on that, case seekers.
I'm alone and you hear a knock, don't answer the door. That was my grandmother's one rule when she left me the family house. I thought it was just the rantings of an old woman. I didn't know how real the rule was until the other night. The house I inherited was deep in the forest, far from bustling city noises. Silence was the unspoken language here, except sometimes you would hear the owls. But the other night when I was sitting in the living room reading a book, that's when I heard it. There was a single knock at the front door, and then I remembered my grandmother's warning. If you're home alone and you hear one knock, don't answer the door. I looked over at my grandfather clock in the corner. It was midnight. I told myself that the knock was just a figment of my imagination. It was just the house settling, or a fallen branch against the door. But then it came again, a single solitary knock. but this time it sounded closer. I was panicking. I just stood there staring at the door. The third knock was so loud that it made the door rattle. There was no more denying it. Something was at the door.
If you see this happen, you need to run fast. If you see these orange dots on a tree in the woods, you seriously need to run fast. It might just look like orange paint, but don't be fooled. This is a trap. There have been loads of reports of missing people in these types of woods. So if you see these orange markings in the woods, you need to run fast. Make sure you share this message and follow for more.
Why the hell was he there? He's risking his life.
Now this video has got the internet going crazy because a guy in Melbourne, Australia is quite literally claiming that his dog was playing with a ghost. And after watching this, I bloody believe him. Now he insists that his backyard is fully secured and locked by a high fence where there is no way for another dog to get in. He also said that he ran outside to check if he hadn't lost the plot and that the ghost dog was nowhere to be seen. And if this video hasn't got you contemplating life, another video which has scarred me for life is this bastard. Now keep your eyes on the collar of the black dog on the right. So as you can see, the two dogs are just barking and barking, and then suddenly, out of nowhere, for some reason, they just go completely quiet. A few seconds later, the black dog then randomly jerks backwards into the side of the crate, and its collar comes off of its own accord.
Is that an edit or was that real?
Have you ever wondered why Domino's dropped their Noid mascot back in the 90s? Just like how McDonald's has Ronald McDonald and Burger King had the King, Domino's had the Noid. First created in 1986, the slogan was "Avoid the Noid," as he would try to thwart pizza deliveries.
Noid loves to move pizza. It's whole Domino's pizza. We avoid the Noid.
But this all changed for Domino's on January 30th, 1989.
Okay.
On that day, Kenneth Lamar Noid took 2 Domino's pizza employees hostage with a .357 Magnum in Georgia. Now, the entire ordeal lasted about 5 hours, and his demands were $10,000, a getaway car, and a copy of the book The Widow's Son. He also demanded the employees make him a pizza. While he was enjoying the pizza, they managed to escape and no one was hurt. Kenneth was arrested and charged with kidnapping, aggravated assault, and theft by extortion. So what exactly did the Domino's Noid have to do with Kenneth Noid?
Yeah.
He had become convinced that the ads were directly aimed at him, with his last name being Noid and the ad saying, "Avoid the Noid." One of the arresting officers at the scene said that he was having an ongoing feud in his mind. Believing that the commercials were made to mock him, he fully believed that the owner of Domino's Pizza was telling people to avoid him.
Avoid the Noid. Avoid the Noid. Avoid the Noid.
Now, he was charged but found not guilty due to reasons of insanity and was sent to a Georgia mental health clinic. Domino's continued on as normal until another incident in 1995. Still convinced that the pizza chain was out to get him, Kenneth took his own life in his Florida apartment. Following this, the pizza chain immediately stopped using the Noid in their marketing campaigns. Since then, the Noid has made a few smaller appearances on t-shirts, in pinball machines, in a video game, and a small snippet in an ad. Now, in 2021, Domino's released an ad showcasing their new driverless delivery vehicles. The ad's showing off that the Noid is back, but he has not been seen since that ad.
This true crime case will make your blood boil. Over a decade ago, 19-year-old Cara Nicholls vanished. The teenager was born and raised in Colorado Springs and unfortunately had begun using substances throughout high school. She was reported missing on the 14th of October 2012. At this point, her roommates hadn't heard from her for 5 days. Police soon learned that she'd actually spoken to her brother on the phone on the 9th of October at around 11:45 p.m. She told him that she was on her way to a modelling shoot. The next day, unsettlingly, her phone was going straight to answer phone. It was actually her brother that ended up travelling to her apartment to figure out what was going on. He spoke to her roommates and the alarm was raised. Now, Cara's laptop was actually still at her apartment, which was concerning because if she just decided to up and left, she wouldn't have left her laptop behind. When investigators started digging into the case, they found that Cara had been placing ads as an S worker. Interestingly, she'd actually posted an ad with her phone number on it the same day she went missing. Police also found out that her phone had been used on that day too at almost midnight. Investigators started looking into exactly which numbers she'd received calls from and set about contacting the individuals. They got a return call of Joel Hollendorfer. He admitted to police that yes, he had spoke to the girl about S services, but they'd never ended up meeting. However, when police tracked Cara's phone, her last activity was in the area of Joel's parents' house. Police ended up searching the property with a cadaver dog. Disturbingly, the dog barked in loads of different areas on the property to indicate remains. However, the owner of the property stated that this must be just because they have a lot of animals and over the years the animals die and then they bury them in the back garden. The police were happy with this explanation and gave up on the search. They also decided to interview Joel's wife, who strangely declined to cooperate with the investigation. Frustratingly, Cara's case went cold. On February the 8th, 2022, a decade after she went missing, police confirmed that they had found Cara's body. It was on that property they'd searched the whole time. Joel was obviously arrested. In February 2022, his wife decided to come clean to police. She told them that Joel had told her in 2014 that he accidentally killed an escort that he'd hired. He admitted that he accidentally strangled her to death and buried her near a dead horse on the property. Joel's defense in court claimed that he accidentally killed her in an S-act gone wrong and that she lost consciousness due to substance use. Shockingly, he was only convicted of manslaughter and got just 24 years in prison. This was a huge blow to Cara's family.
Telling you the system. Oh, we know what this is.
Sure to hide your little sister from him. 2 months ago, Drake was rumored to be dating, and currently has been rumored to be dating, the rapper Lotto's little sister, her 21-year-old little sister. Second, and I'm still trying to process Meet the Grams. I was not prepared for another drop. I was not ready for this, but here we are. So this is Drake's home. Featuring Kendrick's song Like That. Kendrick said, "Don't make me drop the location." He dropped the location. Okay, so in the cover art for the song that Kendrick just dropped, it's showing that there's 13 individuals in Drake's home, which I think like this symbolizes like Drake's camp, like potentially OVO. And OVO is made up primarily of 16 different individuals, including Drake. Drake has this very close entourage who are very closely associated with him on a friendship and a business level. Like for example, Baca Not Nice, he has been charged and faced prison time for trafficking. And when he got out of prison, Drake helped him become famous. What my theory is, and it's probably wrong, but there's 13 people here in this cover art. And there are 16 people a part of OVO that are like pillars in OVO, including Drake. Do the people missing from this cover art symbolize the OVO moles? Kendrick exposing Drake is going much further than just Drake being exposed. And I'm here for the tea. I'll probably make 500 more videos about these diss tracks. I'll see you guys in the next one.
It's crazy.
When Kendrick started out the song talking to Adonis, I immediately knew Drake was cooked. In my head, I was like, yeah, Drake, you done. You done. I could have turned off the song right then and there and said, yeah, Drake, you're cooked. You're finished. Retire. Because I have never heard a rapper talk to somebody kids. You know, talk to the dude who's like talking to a dude who he's beefing with, like his kids in the song. I've never heard that before. So when he said that, I was like, what the fuck? He said your granddaddy should have worn protection. Like, oh my god. He said your daddy didn't teach you shit. In my opinion, easily one of the most disrespectful lines in the entire song. When he told Adonis, let me be your mentor. Like, that is so disrespectful. Drake, me personally, if I had a son and somebody was talking about my son telling him that, me personally, I'm just saying, babe.
Guys, you know there's been a lot of back and forth between Jake and Kendrick. How I guess Kendrick's trying to expose Drake, and they like going back and forth, man, exposing both things on both sides. What do you guys think, Seekers, man? Is there truth behind what both of them are saying? Because they've been going back and forth, and it doesn't seem like they're slowing down. This is going to be like a slugfest.
Kendrick into thinking he has a daughter. People are claiming this is the daughter. She said, I don't know when, but she said, I guess I'll just take over the world myself, throwing up the 6 Drake merch shop. P.S. Wish you were here. Yesterday, Kendrick said, you need to know that love is eternity and trumps all pain. I'll tell you who your father is. Just play this song when it rains. And her name, her username is Eternity. And she was in the background of a music video with J. Cole and Lil Durk. She said, who do you spy with your eye? Me, Eternity. Here I am with Real Cold World, J. Cole, Lil Durk. It was such an honor. Thanks, Pops. Who's her Pops?
Yeah.
Said, dear baby girl, I'm sorry that your father not active inside your world. He don't commit to much but his music. Yeah, that's for sure. You lied about your son. You lied about your daughter. You lied about them other kids that's out there hoping that you come. Last year, she just turned 10. She just turned 11. Bruh, Kendrick dropped on her birthday. But people are saying in the background of Drake's Family Matters music video, you can see posters of the girl who people are claiming is Drake's daughter, aka proving that Kendrick was indeed baited. Drake is a genius. If this is true, Drake is smart as hell. But at the same time, he still got bodied. He's still not coming back from that diss.
Someone in Drake.
What do you guys think? Does Drake have a secret daughter, or was it like I said, or it was a freaking genius move on his part? It was just a bait, and Kendrick took it.
Camp who's plotting on his downfall. As we all know, we got this new track from Kendrick at 6 a.m. to respond to Drake for the second time. People are saying it's another diss track, but I think it's a personal message for Drake to let him know about his inner circle. It's a known fact that every time Drake gets in a beef, he pays his people to find dirt on the person that he has an issue with. Low-key just makes it easier. If I'm Drake, what do I look like going on Google to find info about my ops? I'm dropping a bag. But what if the person you have beef with lives one of the most peaceful lives like ever? It completely backfires. Somehow gets right back to the person that you have the issue with. This becomes the main message in 616 in LA.
There's a mole inside OVO, but I heard that kind of Drake, he kind of like, he can say he planted all that information, so it was just fake. And I guess whoever it was, if there was a mole, they just gave themselves up, and he knows now. It's like they playing these mind games back and forth, Kendrick and Drake. It's like, damn. This ain't just, to me, this ain't no freaking regular beef. It's like, they're throwing, like I said,
the support of this album to back it, Kendrick is literally saying he has nothing to hide. I mean, this album talked about it all. In that album, he said he cheated on his wife, had family issues. That whole album was basically a therapy session. Any dirt that Drake's trying to find on Kendrick right now is pointless. Drake's paying people to find info while he's sitting on the couch like this. It's a perfect alley-oop to see what Drake's gonna do next. Could it be something like Back to Back that's a straight hit record and just can't be avoided? Or will we see a poorly made diss track that has no chance of winning this battle? Only time will tell, but it's undebatable that these two are the greatest artists of our generation.
Drake and Kendrick Lamar got in a rap battle. Who do you think would win?
Gotta go with Kendrick. I'm just saying, I think Drake is an outstanding entertainer, but Kendrick, his last album was outstanding.
Obama saw this couple of freaking years ago where he's a damn prophet. What the hell? It's like my people, they already was picking sides back then, man. So Obama got freaking Kendrick over Drake. Is that insane? Is that crazy, man? You know, everybody has their freaking side, bro. This beef, man, it's gonna go off for a minute. That's a YouTube. If you guys stay with me to the end of the video, your true seeker is seeking the truth. I really appreciate the support, man. Like I said, hit that subscribe button, man. Hit that like button. Let's grow our community, the seekers, together. Like I said, man, I'm trying to do everything I can to upgrade this channel, so I really appreciate your support. You guys hitting that like button, it makes everything possible. Follow me on my social medias, man. Send me the videos that you guys want to react to. I'm out. Peace, seekers.